We plan for areas to burn when they are naturally ignited. But when an area is a candidate for wildland fire use, are we ready to support that plan? Byron Bonney explains that a successful wildland fire use program may depend not so much on our plan, but on our commitment to manage the resource, keeping in mind what the resource's needs are. Are we really ready to commit to a wilderness ethic that puts the resource ahead of our own comfort level in management? Byron Bonney began his fire career in 1969 as an interagency resource crew member and retired 32 years later as the fire staff officer on the Clearwater Nez Perce National Forest in 2001. He also worked as an interagency resource crew boss, smoke jumper, assistant fire management officer, fuel specialist, district FMO, and forest fuels specialist during his tenure. His passion is wildland fire use, which he's been involved with since 1980, and continues to support the program as a retiree.
It was particularly challenging in several aspects. The first aspect was it was a normal wilderness fire under P&F status for several weeks until it started to get up and head towards Montana from Idaho. It was on the Red River Ranger District in the Selway River drainage in the upper reaches of it, and it decided to move to Montana one day. Things were going along very well until August 10th, 1996, when we got a 3-day wind event. It hit the sweat fire and caused many fires in that general area to burn together. And the sweat fire went from about 12 to 1,500 acres to 42,000 acres in that 3-day period. During that time, that 3-day period, we had to make a decision. Were we going to keep this fire as wildland fire use, or P&F at that time, or were we going to declare it a wildfire and take appropriate action? If an area has not seen fire for a long period of time, it needs fire. That's one of the things we look at. How can we allow fire in an area if it hasn't seen fire for a long period of time? Because how else you gonna allow the wilderness resource to evolve ecologically, naturally, if you keep corralling fires? You've got to start allowing fires. I'm always one that asks the question, why would you put this fire out? Rather than, why would you let this fire burn? Because wilderness is wilderness, and fire is part of that. Well, if you have that strong wilderness ethic and knowing that fire needs to play a role in the area, then I think it helps you understand the reasons why you're allowing this fire to burn better, and helps your confidence level that you're doing the right thing for the wilderness resource. So I think that's important in any of this. If you put that fire out, when would you ever allow it to burn? Would you ever? Under what conditions? Well, under moderate conditions. Was it really going to help the wilderness resource under moderate conditions? Normally, if the ERC is 80% at the 80th percentile or less, fires are pretty inconsequential in subalpine fir and lodgepole. They poop around. They don't do anything. They may get a quarter acre, maybe an acre. Then they go out. The end of the season comes and you're done. That's under a moderate type of year. These regimes don't really burn unless you have the conditions that allow them to burn. So you better understand what those conditions are and be willing to accept them. Otherwise, you shouldn't have a wildland fire use program if you're not willing to take that risk, which is calculated in the planning that you do and the fire behavior things you do. You need to understand those concepts and live with them and plan for them. A lot of changes have taken place in vegetation and the landscapes because of fire suppression. And some people get that and some don't. But the age-old question I always ask people, if I'm having a discussion with them and they're going, there's no impact on putting these fires out. The age-old question I ask them is, okay, so for instance, Clearwater Forest, an average of 165 fires a year. So in a 10-year period, there's 1,650 fires. And yeah, a lot of the regimes are long duration regimes on the Clearwater. But what you're telling me then is we put out 99% of these fires in that 10-year period. So what you're telling me is none of those fires, the 1,640 fires, whatever 99% of that is, would have had an impact on the landscape or vegetation in that 10-year time frame. That's what you're saying. Well, no, I'm not saying that. Well, that's what I hear you saying. And it's just my philosophy that those 1,650 fires, there would have been some of those in that 10-year time frame that would have drastically altered the vegetation and the landscape on the Clearwater Forest if we wouldn't have put them out. Some years, none of them would have. But there would have been those few in that 10-year time frame that would have. How much would have they? I don't know. But they would have. Wilderness is wilderness. You cannot manage wilderness and go in and as a main objective, enhance wildlife habitat. And wilderness is wilderness. And you allow the natural processes to take place, and it just happens.
What we have learned from interviewing wildland fire use managers is that their deep smarts consisted of not only the technical aspects of their fire work, fire behavior prediction, risk assessment, thinking through their expectations mindfully, but that they came to the complicated, stressful work of allowing lightning fires to burn in parks and wildernesses with what one person called a higher purpose. Without this higher purpose, which we understood to mean a deeply grounded wilderness land ethic, the same wilderness land ethic exemplified by Byron Bonney, wildland fire use managers found it nearly impossible to withstand the enormous individual and organizational risks that were always inherent in fire programs that called for the widespread use of naturally ignited forest fires. Without this higher purpose, it was always much easier to put the fires out. In his essay, Thinking Like a Mountain, Aldo Leopold wrote of shooting a wolf and of wounding her grown cub and watching it limp off into Slide Rock. We reached that old wolf in time to watch a fierce green fire dying in her eyes. I realized then, and I have known ever since, that there was something new to me in those eyes, something known only to her and to the mountain. Maybe lightning fires in parks and wildernesses can be looked at in the same light. Maybe there's something only a fire in the mountain and the wilderness can know. And maybe we, like Aldo Leopold and Byron Bonney, can look at those fires and see something new in their flames.